breaking today, tributes pouring in from former President George W. Bush and members of his cabinet after the passing of former Vice President Dick Cheney at the age of 84. Fox News medical contributor Dr. Mark Siegel sat down with the titan of conservative politics in 2013 to talk candidly about his health.
Many heart attack victims from the 1970s are dead. Mm-hmm. How come you're alive?
Combination of things. Obviously a donor. Tremendous advances in medical technology. The prayers of a lot of people all over the country.
Dr. Siegel joins us now, author of the best-selling book, Miracles Among Us. And it really was quite a miracle, given his history of heart problems with his first heart attack at the age of 37. The fact that he lived to be 84.
He had a lot of serenity to him and faith. A devout Methodist. Reminds me of someone in my book, the chief of surgery here, who had a heart transplant and many cardiac arrests before that. Cheney was very serene. And as you know, at the age of 37, he had his first heart attack. He had 5 of them. He had bypass surgery. He had a defibrillator put in. He taught us about the bridge to transplant, that pump that he got before the bypass. When I interviewed him, he was serene about his future. And like Montgomery in my book, he said, I'm living day to day. And I asked him, how does it feel to have a second heart, John? He said, liberals didn't think I had a first heart. He kept his sense of humor by him. And what probably happened to him here, although I don't have all the details, I want you to know it's really, really unlikely to live this long after a heart transplant. 75% live 5 years. But he's already made it, had already made it before he passed away, 13 years, on immunosuppressant therapy. And he ended up with pneumonia and heart issues. So it's really a tough road to hoe going forward, even after you've had that heart replaced.
Yeah, you know, I actually pulled some statistics from the National Institutes of Health on survival rates. They say that 15 to 20% of people die within the first year of receiving a heart transplant. There's a 50% survival rate after 10 years, only 15% after 20 years. So recipients really begin to fall off of a cliff. He lived 13 and a half years, and he didn't get his heart transplant until he was 71 years old.
And he also waited on the list for 20 months. And I think the immunosuppressants really knock you down. But I believe firmly that his serenity and his courage and his nonchalantness and his intellectual prowess, all of that helped him. And obviously great doctors helped him. Yeah. And, you know, and his family helped him. They circled around him. All of that, love, caring, really, really important to continue to shoulder on medically. He's a medical miracle. There's no doubt about it.
You know, you talk about this idea of courage and serenity. You asked him about his attitude in your 2013 interview. Here's what he told you. Listen here.
I found if you didn't act like a victim, if your mental attitude was suitably adjusted, I guess would be the way I put it, that an awful lot of it did have to do with your psychological outlook on life. And I wanted to live life to the fullest, and I did.
You know, he was a take-charge guy in all aspects of his life, including his health. And there's that idea, too, of the mind-body connection, that you can actually affect your physiology by your mental attitude.
I believe that strongly in his case, and a new study just came out proving that. You're less likely to be depressed or anxious if you have a serenity, if you believe in the soul, if you overcome, and if you don't let it get to you. He definitely was somebody that didn't complain. And look at the amount of stress he had, you know, when he was chief of staff, when he was secretary of defense, when he was vice president. He ran for Congress at 37 years of age after having had a heart attack. I mean, there's people that I'm talking to right now, like you, John, you know, or myself. You cannot let health issues get to you. And then you become inspirations for those around you. And it's clearly Vice President Cheney was that. And I believe strongly that his personal courage and not giving in to the troubles that he had, one heart attack after another, and then the bypass, and then the pump, and then the transplant, all of which he just shrugged off and went on.
Well, that which doesn't kill us immediately makes us stronger, right, Doc? Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your
Great to see you, John.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.